Well, did you ever notice that on December 17th, when we read the genealogy, the deacons never show up? They avoid this Mass like the plague, right? Actually, I enjoy reading the genealogy. It's really a challenge, but it's great. The quote for today is, "I could not afford an ancestry DNA kit, so I just announced that I had won the lottery. I soon found out who all my relatives are." So it is December 17th, and we hear this beautiful genealogy. And as you know, genealogies are something that are becoming a lot more of interest in our Western society. You have Ancestry.com, you have 23andMe, and all these different ways to learn about your DNA and your heritage and your ancestry and your genealogy. The Mormons are very big on genealogy as well. But for the ancient Jewish people, it was vital. It was so important. That's why Matthew begins his gospel with the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Notice he calls him the Son of David, not a son of David, the Son of David, and the Son of Abraham. Not a son of Abraham, because there were countless sons of Abraham, but he was the Son of David, the Son of Abraham. And notice he starts out his gospel, which, as you know, in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Matthew's gospel is always listed first in the New Testament because it's the bridge between the Old and New Testament. He's showing that Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament, and he parallels the book of Genesis, because in the book of Genesis, it says, the book of the genealogy of Adam. And so Matthew is doing a parallel with the book of Genesis, showing that God is now bringing about a new creation, the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth, the church. And just as Adam was the first Adam, so now Jesus is the second Adam, the new Adam, who came to bring in the kingdom of God. And notice how Matthew gives us this genealogy. Matthew, as you know, was a tax collector. He was known for exactness and using scrolls and parchment. So Matthew, his gospel is very organized and structured, just like a CPA accountant, right? Or an IRS person. Very meticulous. So he gives us the genealogy in 3 sets of 14. That was very significant because the number for David is the number 14. As I mentioned last year, the Hebrew language had no numbers, and so letters were given numerical value. The letter D was the number 4, the letter V was the number 6. So when you see David's name, which is DVD, because there were no vowels, DVD was the name of David, and when you added those up, 4 plus 6 plus 4 is the number 14. So the very name of David meant the number 14. It's a number of perfection because it's double the number of 7. As you know in the Bible, numbers are significant. The number 7 is a number of perfection, God creating the universe in these 7 days, in these 7 periods of time, these 7 ages, whatever it might be. But the number 7 is so important. We even see, besides the 3 sets of 14, it's really 6 sets of 7. Notice 6 sets of 7 names of 7 generations, which means that Christ ushers in the 7th 7, the number of perfection, by when God became man, when the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, as the Christ, the Anointed One, the Messiah. And we know that Matthew gives us in the genealogy the list of all the patriarchs, and then the kings, and then some ordinary people that we do not know much about. Even among the kings, most of them are not virtuous, holy men. Out of the 15 kings, only about 3 of them were considered very just, moral, and righteous people, like Hezekiah, for example. And yet you have someone like Manasseh, who was considered one of the most evil and wicked king. So even in Jesus' family tree, there were saints and sinners. This was the original people of God, a combination of holy people, but also sinful people, saints and sinners, just like in the church today. You have saints and sinners in the new people of God. And so it's also interesting that Matthew includes 4 women, and then, of course, the Blessed Mother is number 5. So the women that are mentioned, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba, are mentioned. And it's also interesting to note that all these 4 women are foreigners. Tamar, a Canaanite. We know that Rahab was a Canaanite living in Jericho. She was a woman of ill repute, and yet God saved her when she hid the Israelite spies. And then Ruth was a Moabite, and then Bathsheba was the wife of Uriah, who was a Hittite. And yet God, as we say, draws straight lines with crooked letters, or whatever that saying is, right? God knows how to write straight with crooked lines or whatever. But that's what he does here in this mix of saints and sinners, and even someone like David, who took Bathsheba as his wife and had Uriah killed. Again, God allows it. He allows human free will, and yet he will also bring good out of every situation, ultimately down to Jacob, the father of Joseph, who was married to Mary, our Blessed Mother. Matthew's very clear it was of her who was born Jesus, who was called the Christ. So he clearly shows that St. Joseph is not the physical, biological father of Jesus, but he is the legal father. And in those days, when somebody legally adopted a son and named that son then became part of his tribe, his lineage. So that's why Jesus is the son of David, the son of Abraham, and he is the fulfillment of the Jewish Messiah. He is called the Christ. So notice in our opening sentence of today's Mass, why did God do all this? It says, God wanted to share our humanity, to humble himself so we can share in his divinity. That's why God became man, so we might have a share in the divine life through baptism and the Holy Eucharist and the sacraments, that God became man that we might share in his divinity.